Hello and welcome to Fluro Friday.
Yes, it's Friday again, 22nd of September 2017, and so glad you're here.
It's sunny in Sydney and we are all very happy here.
Awesome. Today we're going to go through how you can turn more church visitors into church family and by optimizing your follow-up process. So let's get into it.
Beautiful.
Have you ever looked at your church in the auditorium on a Sunday and seen empty seats? And remember the people that used to sit in them.
Or maybe you're in the middle of a message, or maybe you're preaching and you have people in mind that you wish were there and that you wish could hear what was being said.
If you look at the stats, the latest Australian census tells us that the church, people that call themselves Christians, has dropped dramatically. In 1991, 74% of people would call themselves Christian. And just last year, that dropped to 52%.
But
there is hope. There's a bunch of churches that have bucked the trend. And if we look at Beyond Mega Church Myths by Scott and Dave, they talk about how...
you can't see, sorry.
I am blind. They talk about how small churches in America, that's churches 0 to 49, or 1 to 49 I should say, and large churches over 2,000, have actually grown at a faster rate than population growth.
So why is that?
There is a good reason why, and we're going to go through a couple of them that some of the big churches are doing today. And we want to show you how to create a great follow-up culture. So not just a follow-up system, but culture, empower your teams, and also to know how to, I guess, set yourselves apart from everyone else's, what they're doing on a weekend, so they come back.
In the world in which we live in, so many connections are happening, and the church should be a place that people walk in. And just like it says, we want to turn more visitors into family. So this will be a guide for follow-ups.
Awesome.
So you may be thinking that what brings people back to mega churches may be the lights or the smoke or the great band, but it's actually not the case.
It's there. Before we get into why a lot of these churches are doing so well, it's most churches by default are conservative by nature, and so they're slow to change. They're afraid of change, and we'll go through a few of those reasons later on. But as a result, they're missing a huge opportunity and just losing people. People are falling through the cracks. So what I want to do in this video is show you how to buck that trend and not, I guess, let go of the past, the right things, not necessarily the good things. And then if you look at how a church, if you had a visitor every week and had no follow-up system, the stats tell us that 9% of those people would still be here in 12 months. And so if you have one every week, that's about 5 people that would still be there out of 52.
But if you had a follow-up system and each visitor that came every week, if you actually followed them up, there would be, I think, 31 new people every year. So by just implementing a follow-up system, you actually go from having 9% of people stay, which is 5 people, to 31 people.
Yeah, so anywhere from, the stats we looked at from lots of churches, up to 67%. Some of the better churches. We'll go through one of those churches today. So the 3 things that we're going to go through is firstly how you define family and what a win looks like in terms of connection, why people leave and which reasons you have power over and which ones you don't, and then a simple system that can help you really grow your church and automate turning more people into family.
So for you and your church, what does it mean to be family at your church? Maybe it includes things like being involved in a connect group or a small group, or being on a volunteer team, or maybe even just knowing you could call someone if you needed to, if it was a time of need. Family is very important when it comes to people returning back and feeling like they belong.
Yeah, and family's not like a one-way transaction. It's a two-way transaction. Like everyone wants to belong and be loved in the church community. But as you grow and you keep coming back, people want to contribute and create a place for others to belong. So understanding that, we can see how this church, Hillsong Church, defines family. So they define family as someone that is attending and is active in a small group. And so for you, small groups, you might call them connect groups or discipleship groups or weekly Bible study or family gatherings, or there's lots of names for it, but Hillsong as a church gets pigeonholed a lot as a mega church, and people just like a back door, people just come and go. But they're very, very focused on making their church feel like a small church with just lots of people. That's a phrase that they use quite a lot.
And if you've ever been, you would know from the moment you walk in the door, from the welcome team to the big sign on every Hillsong church that says welcome home, their heart is actually that every single person, they really focus on the one, would feel welcomed, would feel like they belong. And yes, they've got great programs and they've got good music and they do have great facilities. But if you've been there or you've heard any of the lead pastors or even people who've visited go, you know that the one-to-one connection is actually what keeps people coming back.
And that's what they focus on. They're very intentional. There's accountability, there's reporting, there's team building around that. And that two-way connection is everything. They don't automate mass emails. They don't automate SMSing people. And they're very conscious that by design, it's a two-way connection.
And it's actually every person who comes to Hillsong Church will actually get a call. If they've entered in their details, they'll actually get a call within the first 48 hours to a week just to say hello, like thank you for coming to church. And just a genuine one-to-one connection between that first 48 hours.
And even if it's not a call, it could be a Facebook message where they reply.
A connection.
The connection is like two-way, so it's not just a mass one-way conversation. And so Joel Bell, he's the lead pastor of Australia, and he has a blog which will just quickly go through a few of the key points that I think are really could be really helpful in terms of creating a follow-up team, effective follow-up team. So the first thing is creating like a culture, like a welcoming culture. So not just on the call, but even before that, people walk in. You've got people on doors saying hi. Hillsong Church, at every church in the foyer will have a big welcome home sign, which is very intentional and on purpose. And from that first moment, when people walk in to even in this service as well, not necessarily picking out people in the audience, but mentioning on stage and what to do next if you're new. Second thing is they manage expectations. So when people do fill in their details, they let them know that they're going to call. So you don't have the feeling of like...
out of the blue, someone rings you like a telemarketer or something.
Yeah.
And it's an overflow of what someone has already experienced at Hillsong Church. If you walk in and you already feel welcome, and then someone's mentioned to you, oh, I'm going to give you a call probably within the next couple of days just to see how you're going, see if I can pray with you about anything, and just invite them back to church. So it's not out of the blue. They're actually expecting it. So if someone doesn't call, that's what's almost a little bit more strange than when someone does call.
And they're very intentional on who's on that follow-up team. So they choose carefully, and those people are like your ambassadors for your church. So they need to be pastoral in nature, great personalities.
Know what to do on the fly. Something, imagine you give someone a ring and they've had a really terrible day. You need someone that will be able to walk with them, talk with them, and kind of manage any kind of scenario that happens.
For sure. And also well trained. So there's no awkward silences on the phone call. And so they know what there's purpose. It's purposeful. And the last thing that Hills does is they actually have planned out and they've analyzed and worked out the best way to call over a 12-week period. So they call, so we mentioned they call within that first week, but they actually have 4 calls over 12 weeks. So they, week 1, they need a call. Week 3 is the second call comes in. Week 7 is the third call, and then before week 12, that 4th call. So
and ideally, if you were to meet someone in the first week and give them a ring and they've come to sit with you next week, which would be probably the most ideal scenario, it's just those connection points. So over the 12-week period, if you have 4 great connections with a person, it's actually highly likely within a year's time that they'll actually still be in church, because through those connections, they're finding a place where they belong. They're finding a place that they can fit in. And it's about the calls, but it's really about the connections.
And if they're not there in 12 months, we're going to go through a few of these reasons now. Why? people don't come back to church. So, I mean, everyone in your church leadership, you've got the best intention. You want to, you've got best plans, but either you don't execute or you just have not enough time, or things become more like an obligation where you're worried about KPIs rather than like organic, Jesus-driven community.
Yeah, because your heart would be that we're reaching the lost as the church. And so when people come into your church, the heart of probably every leader and every pastor would be that they would come back again and they would find family. But sometimes that's not the case. And we're going to talk through a couple of reasons why.
Yeah, we're going to go through 6 reasons why. And the 6th reason is the only one you actually have any control over. So a couple of reasons why people are busy. And so that's what the words they use. But basically there's other priorities. And you can't set people's priorities for them. Unless you're a dictator or something, but that's not the community you want to build. Yeah. So, and just understanding that can be quite releasing. Another reason is they're not a great fit, or they feel like your church is not a great fit. And it could be personal preference, could be that they're not in town that regularly, or they're just visiting and passing through, and that's okay.
Or maybe they don't agree exactly with leadership or the doctrine there. And once again, that's not in your control.
And and in terms of leadership, like clashes with leadership, personality, especially when as a leader and you're growing, you're more, I guess, missional focused, whereas people generally are relationally built. So just understanding that difference.
And also offense. I'm sure you could probably think of a couple people or a couple instances that people have taken offense and haven't come back to church. And some of those maybe for valid reasons, but it's part of the church ever since Constantine, really. Yeah. You could look back early church fathers, whether it had to do, again, with the leadership, with the color of the carpet. People take offense, but one thing you do have control over is good, genuine connections. Because if people walk into your church and they feel like they've had a shallow conversation or a shallow connection, they may not want to come back.
Yeah, and I think as well as, especially if they come for months or years and still feel like they have no friends at church. Yeah. And so, I mean, you could probably think of another bunch of reasons, but and just talking through those might make you feel disheartened. But as a leader, you can choose what to focus on. Yeah. And the key is to focus not on the people that you've lost, but people that you want to reach. Yes. And so some people are just unpleasable. You can't please everyone. And if you try, it's just futile. So,
but the thing that you have control over is that you can enable people, whether it's from the moment people walk into the foyer or that call they get 2 days later, just facilitating that genuine connection will allow for a greater opportunity for people to connect and to feel a part of family.
And one of those things that you can do to facilitate is create, our third point is great systems. So John Maxwell, when he talks about systems, he describes it as a simple way of getting things done. So they're not one-time acts, they're more regular habits. So weekly things that you do, or even daily things that you do. It's an important mechanic of leadership, and it will dictate how effective you are in terms of running a church and also doing follow-ups.
Yeah, and a lot of people think of systems and they hear the word and they think, oh, a church can't have systems because then things would be automated or they wouldn't be genuine. But actually having a good system that understands your vision and your culture, you actually, you using that system will allow you a greater reach and a greater effect, like being able to have a greater effect.
Yes, for sure. Manage your time better. And one thing it does that may surprise you, it actually allows for more creativity because it automates mundane, trivial admin tasks and it gives you more time and space to think outside the box and focus your mental energy on higher priorities. So now we're going to show you a simple system that you can implement on the Fluro platform by using our new Pulse app. So let's get into that. So we'll bring it up. So there's 3 ways to get notified when someone adds in a contact. You can get an email, SMS, or a push notification. So here's a push notification, and as I tap it, I can see Britta's Perry's details, some notes. At the moment there's no notes. Call her, SMS her, click the to-dos, and now if I go back to my homepage, tap Robin here, and it shows me I'm late. It was due 17 days ago, and then we look at, click it to do when they're done, and then if I go to the timeline, now we can see some information here. I can see the connection type, positively connected over coffee, in person as well. And then if I wanted to add another connection here, I can click in the top right, and that will give us a whole bunch of options, and hit add connection, and then we can put the details in there. So this lets us quickly and easily on the phone navigate. And this is the leader's view, where you can see everyone is in green light, red light, and who needs to be called. Now we've just gone through that demo, and now as we wrap up, I just want to remind you, like, what's at stake? What's at stake if you don't change? You may have heard of Kodak. If you were born after 1990, you may never have heard of that. But in 2012, they went bankrupt. Why does this matter? Well, they were a $31 billion company, and they had 145,000 staff. So at their peak, and they're a film and camera business. And when they filed for bankruptcy in 2012, it was due to the result that their biggest money makers, film, cameras, was basically taken out their market share by smartphones, digital cameras, digital SLR cameras.
They were outdated.
They didn't move fast enough. And the irony is that 37 years earlier, before they went bankrupt, they actually had one of their team members
Had a great idea.
His name was Steve Sasson, and he actually invented the digital camera, which Kodak, for up until 2007, I think were making billions on licensing, but still took them out.
But why didn't they implement his idea?
Well, there were a few reasons, but execs were suspicious. They didn't really think it would take off. But then it was the marketing department that were worried that it would actually eat into their biggest moneymaker, which was film. Because as soon as you go digital, you don't need to repeatedly buy film. So, and as a result, at the SAT, I don't know how many staff they had there at the end, but potentially 145,000 staff lost their jobs. And
Kodak as a business
doesn't exist anymore.
Obsolete.
So what's a lesson that we can learn? I think it's, if we don't recognize the trends that are happening in the church world right now, we're going to be left behind. The general trends will keep going down. The churches that do have great systems and are very focused on creating belonging are going to keep growing. And hopefully your church doesn't have to have a lot of empty seats, and you can start filling those seats. So if there was one thing, John, what if there was one thing?
If there was one thing that you could take away from creating a good follow-up system, it would be that within 48 hours of someone walking into your church, they, number one, have felt welcomed. Number two, have received some kind of phone call, text message, connection, and that they're invited back to church the next week. And just by using that one simple tactic to create genuine people-to-people connections, it will actually ensure that you as a church will have more people in your congregation, more people that are invested, more people that understand the vision, that feel like they belong, and that then can contribute within a year's time.
For sure. And we want to help you be a great steward of the people that God's entrusted you with, that visit your church, walk into your church foyer. And we want you to help empower your teams as well to enable people-to-people connections, not necessarily just automated mass emails. And so if we can help you do that, I believe we can. And you can sign up for a trial of Fluro and at getfluro.com and start implementing a follow-up system right now. And can set you up, get you up and running, and hopefully turn more visitors into church family.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for staying with us on Fluro Friday. And again, if you want to start a trial, go to getfluro.com and we'll see you there.
Thanks so much.
See ya.
Bye.